All right. We'll make a couple videos addressing comments that I had about this truck. There's 11,800 some miles on it now. Um, if you watch my other videos, the one comment I've gotten a lot is that engine will last at 4,000 RPM uh, compared to the diesels, okay, which are turning um, when you're in them good, they're turning 3,200. This motor kind of makes all its power around 4,000, so under full load, full throttle, on 8% grade, it would hang around 41, 42, 4,500 RPM. Here's why I think that's not a somewhat invalid argument for a little bit. Um, the gas motors, I don't know. I do see where you're coming from a little bit, but being naturally aspirated, these new diesels are running 35, 40 pounds of boost, and that's pretty tough on a rotating assembly under full load. So the 4,000 RPM naturally aspirated, from what I've seen, will be less strenuous than 35 pounds of boost at 3,000, 2,500, 3,000 RPM. Um, so they wind the new diesels out pretty tight, and you kind of have the same deal. But the pistons are a little heavier in the diesel, so that makes it a little more wear and tear. Um, One of the other uh, things is so um, there's just so much less stress inside of a gas engine due to the lower combustion, your lower compression, um, you know, no boost, lower compression. Your drive pressure is significantly less. This engine is a forged internals engine. You've got a forged crank. You've got a forged rods. You've got 6-bolt mains. The high RPM Valvetrain stuff, you don't really see you don't see valve float like you used to. Valve springs are pretty good. You don't see people breaking valve springs. So I don't think that'll be a long term problem. Um, Even if, let's say, it was a long term problem, and let's say in a perfect world your diesel makes it to 300,000, and your maintenance is, you have no DPF problems, which is almost impossible. You're going to have those issues, and you have no fuel system problems, and you have no turbocharger problems. That's the big three that kill the new diesel. Um, so let's say you make it to 300,000, and this engine only makes it to 150 load for load. Okay. Um, I can buy, any Joe Blow can go on the internet, buy that 7.3 crate motor for like $7,000. It's pretty rough what I've seen. Um, so $7,000, and if you have somebody install, it'll be $3,000 to $4,000. So let's say $11,000 is what you're in to have a new motor put in it. Well, right out of the gate, you're $11,000 less to own the 7.3 gas motor than the Power Stroke. That's how much the difference is when you go buy them new for new. And that carries on through the used market as well. You'll see pretty close, not usually that drastic, but pretty close. So then you've got that, and so money wise, the way I see it, still ahead with this engine. Um, Now let's talk about, let's say that diesel runs like all the rest of them do, and you run into DPF issues. Uh, I don't really see any DPF issues come around that don't bill out for much less than $1,500, $2,000. That's usually about the minimum. That's def tank pump problems. You have the crystallization problems quite often. Plugged filter, that's a whole other deal and stuff. You pull that out and get it cleaned if you can. Sometimes you can't. You got to completely replace just to get them cleaned. Once it's out of the truck, you're talking $500. Let's say your fuel system fails. My cost on parts for a CP4 injector lines and injectors, which you have to replace because the CP4 pumps metal through the whole injection system on the diesel. Parts cost $7,000. You got to pull the cab to do it. So you're in that. The average bill I've seen on that is about $15,000. Okay, so I've seen that usually goes between 100 and 200,000, right? Usually right outside of warranty. It's pretty awesome. The turbocharger failures, the Power Stroke's not that bad to put a turbo on, but the Cummins is around $5,000 if you want to replace it. The actuator goes out, and it's cheaper to replace the whole turbocharger than the actuator. So 4 to 5,000 in there. So if those happen and only once, which is really common, you're in that truck. You paid 10,000 more to have it. You have a mediocre amount of fuel savings, sure, but you have to pay DAF and you're paying almost 3 times as much to service it. Um, and then you have those problems come along, which is almost inevitable in that 200,000 mile range. Sometimes the fuel pumps get away sometimes pretty good, and the turbochargers are getting better, but it's still pretty common to see turbo failure, lift pump failure. The water pumps on the new diesels are miserable to do. This engine, you can reach down in the front, and I can get my whole arm down around the entire engine. I can get it around the back, touch the top of the bell housing, no problem. Around the front, it's easy. It'll be easy to work on when it is outside of warranty. I got 7 years of warranty on this truck, so I got a while before I'm gonna be farting around with it. But so that's kind of what you run into. Man, I just don't. It's hard for me to see where you're going to make up that difference to make the diesel pay. You're paying an astronomical amount for big power and convenience, which doesn't really even mean reliability. The diesel used to mean longevity and reliability, and that's not there anymore. Let's say you have catastrophic engine failure in a diesel outside of warranty, you're usually looking at 25,000 roughly. That's pretty ballpark what they go for by the time you get the long block done. I can get that any Joe Blow on the internet, get that engine $7,000-8,000 drop in ready, throttle body, intake manifold, full long block. Water pump, she's ready to go to work. You can't even rebuild the internals on a new diesel for that. So that's kind of my argument for that. Even if it doesn't last at 4,000, it'll be cheaper to own in the long run. There was something else I was going to talk about. Now I just spaced it. Oh, anyways, internals of this engine, pretty industrial. I talked about the rotating assembly, forged rods, piston coolers are a huge deal. That means that somebody built an engine to last when it's got piston coolers. So they're definitely that's where your wear is going to be with heat. It's definitely right in there. That'll keep your cylinders, your pistons cool, your cylinder walls cool for a long time to come. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that engine. That answers a few comments I've seen. I'll make another video about the other ones. Thanks.